Hello everyone, and welcome once again to my channel. Today we'll be looking at how to solve questions on indices by applying the Fractional Indices Law. How to solve questions in indices using the Fractional Indices Law. Now, the fractional indices are powers of a term that are fractions. The fractional indices are powers of a term that are fractions. And we can see an example of that on the board. You see our x raised to power a all over b. Now x is our base term, while a all over b is the power. And you can see that it is a fraction. It is a power of x and it is also a fraction. Now, the parts, which is the upper and lower parts in fractions, we call them the numerator and denominator, they each have a meaning and they also have great relevance in this expression. Now, let's start with the b. Now, the b is the root of the number or the letter. I'll explain more on that later, but just note that the root of the number or the letter is what b is, while a is the power to raise the answer to. The power to raise the answer to. Now, you can see that this is the how the expression usually looks like, but this is how you simplify it. Now, you can see here that x is the base term, and then we now have a over b, which is what? The power. But you can see that it has now been converted to this form. Now, from this form, we can see that x is inside what looks like the root box, and then it is now being enclosed by a bracket, and then outside the bracket we now see the power of a. So what are we trying to say here? Based on the definition and explanation of what a and b is, we find that if you are given a term and that term is now being raised to a power, and that power is a fraction, what you're going to do first of all is you're going to find the root of that term, and then you now raise your answer to the power based on what? The fraction of the power. Now let's look at some examples to get a better understanding on what that statement is. Now let's look at our examples here. Example says we should simplify certain terms. Now the first term we have here is 8 raised to power 2 all over 3. A raised to power 2 all over 3. Now, you can see here that this term looks like this term. 8 raised to power 2 all over 3 looks like x raised to power a all over b. Now, I'm going to convert this to this. So you can see here we have this. X is our 8. We put 8 here. Then this is the denominator, which is b here. We put it here. Then everything here will be what? Raised to power 2. So now we can see that we've converted this to this, which is exactly what we have here. So now, what are we expected to do? Now, you can see that this is a root of 8, but it's not just any root. The 3 here makes us understand that this is the cube root of 8. And now the cube root of 8 simply means that we're going to look for a number. Then when we multiply 3 times, it's going to give us 8. That's what cube root means. So we'll find the cube root of 8. And then when we get the answer, what do? We raise it to the power of 2. So now this 2 here is actually this 2 here. Why this 3 is the cube root, and this 8 is what? 8 here. So that is how you go about arranging the terms which you have been given, in which that it has been raised to a power, and the power is now a fraction. So now, what is the cube root of 8? Well, the number that I know that when you multiply it 3 times to get it is 2. So that means you're going to have the cube root of 8 is 2. I now have 2 raised to power 2. So 2 raised to power 2 is simply 2 times 2, which is equals to 4. So the answer here will be what? 4. So 8 raised to power 2 over 3 will give us 4. Now let's go to the next example. The next example is what? 27 raised to power 1 all over 3. Now, we're going to convert this to this. You know, this and this are the same. So we're going to convert it to the next one. Now, it will now give us what? In bracket, the same cube root of 27, and on the outside will be raised to power 1. Okay? Raised to power 1. So now what is the cube root of 27? The cube root of 27, like I said before, you look for think of a number that when you multiply it 3 times, it will give you what? 27. And that number is what? 3. So it is 3. The cube root of 27 is 3 raised to power 1. So, like I've said many times, any number that you raise to power 1, it will still give you that same number. So 3 raised to power 1 will give you 3, which will now be your final answer. So whenever you're given a term and you're asked to what? Simplify that term. And when you look at the term, you find that term has a power which is a fraction. You just express it in this form. Find the root of the what number, and then what? When you get your answer, you raise it to the power of the numerator. Now, yes, there are certain things we need to note when you're dealing with fractional indices law. Now, one of the things you need to note is, number 1, a value raised to a power of half. A value raised to a power of half means take the square root, which is e.g. x raised to power 1 over 2 will give you the square root of x. So in this example here, we have an example here. What is 9 raised to power half? 9 raised to power half simply means the square root of 9. 9 raised to power half, or 9 raised to power 1 over 2 means what is the square root of 9? And the square root of 9 is what? 3. When you think about it, the square root of 9 is actually 3. But if you want to follow what we have here, you simply say square root of 9 raised to power 1, 3 raised to power 1, which is the same thing as 3. So it's not that you're not following the law, it's just that it's just a way of simplifying it, since you know that anything raised to power 1 is that thing. So now let's go to the second one, which says a value raised to a power of 1 over 3 means take the cube root. Like in this case, it is not raised to power 1 over 3, it is actually raised to power 2 over 3. But in this case, we have raised to power 1 over 3, and it says means take the cube root. In this case, we'll find the cube root first, then we'll now raise the answer to a power of 2. But in this case, if you find the cube root and you raise to a power of 1, it will still give you what your answer was originally. So in this case, we have 27 raised to power 1 over 3. We've already done it here. You just find the cube root of 27, which will give you 3. We have 1 here. If you want to raise it to power 1, it will give you the same answer. So that will be your answer. Now, if for any reason you're being asked to raise to a power of 1 over 4, let's say for example, they say raise 16 to a power of what? 1 over 4. What does it mean? It simply means you're going to find what is called the fourth root. The fourth root. This is the fourth root of 16, which means you're thinking of a number that when you multiply it 4 times, it will give you 16. And that number will be what? 2. Okay. So, depending on the value of your, power, it will now determine how you're going to go about finding the roots. But just know that after you found your roots, you're going to raise your answer to a certain power. Except that power is 1, then you leave it as it is. But if the power is more than 1, just know that when you've gotten the roots of the term, you're going to have to raise it to another power. So that's all we have for today's video. Please, if you found this video very helpful, go ahead and drop a like. Also, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell to get notified when I drop my next video. If you have any question, you can drop it in the comment section. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.